good afternoon and thanks for joining us. I'm Jurnee Taylor here with meteorologist Tracy Bean, and the gloomy weather is back. Tracy, how long is it sticking around this time?
Yeah, we started out a little dreary and it's kind of just continuing into the noon hour, but we are going to see a little bit of relief. We are seeing some of those clouds push through, a little scattered shower here and there, but the bulk of that rainfall that we've talked about receiving over the next few days, that was yesterday. So anything we see from here forward, it's just going to be scattered in nature, but we are seeing some thicker clouds push back in. But the good news is we're going to start to see a little break in that here before long. We're still seeing a bit of fog out there in central Arkansas down to 6 miles. Again, not too bad, but again, you could find some areas that are just a little patchy still. Currently in central Arkansas, 65 degrees. We got a few areas in southern Arkansas are reaching 70. We'll make it there. We just need to get these clouds out of the way. We're going to start to see a little sunshine late afternoon. Might not be too much before sunset, but we'll get to enjoy it a little while as we're looking at that high today in the mid 70s. So again, stay with me. We'll talk more about this weather and what you can expect for Mother's Day weekend coming up in my forecast.
Tracy, thank you. Well, today is the day. Americans traveling within the U.S. must now show a real ID to board a plane or be prepared to face extra screenings. The requirement takes effect 20 years after Congress passed a law to prevent fraud in the wake of the 9/11 attacks. Jared Hill reports from New York, New Jersey, where travelers have already been plagued by flight delays and cancellations for 10 days.
Airports across the country are seeing real changes at security checkpoints.
I don't mind going through an extra layer of security for safety.
After repeated delays, Americans 18 years and older now need to show a real ID with a gold or black star in the corner to fly domestically.
I got it about a month and a half ago.
This is our first time actually using it because we got it like a week ago.
Spencer Simone wasn't sure if his enhanced ID was enough to fly to Austin.
I brought my ID, my passport, just to be on the safe side.
The TSA is encouraging passengers who are not Real ID compliant to show up earlier than usual for additional screening.
They will take you to a secondary line where there's an additional form to fill out, as well as additional forms of identification that they will ask you about.
The Real ID deadline is kicking in amid days of disruptions and delays here at Newark Liberty International Airport, the result of equipment malfunctions and staffing shortages. New audio reveals what air traffic controllers at Newark Airport were experiencing last Monday as they lost all contact with approaching planes for more than a minute.
United 2343, I'm going to move you here because I just got told that the approach lost all their radars. 3 of their 4 radar screens went black, and they have no frequencies. Since then, more than 1,000 flights have been canceled, and about half a dozen controllers have requested trauma leave. Transportation Secretary Sean Duffy is expected to lay out a plan Thursday to overhaul the nation's aging air traffic control system. Jared Hill, CBS News, Newark, New Jersey.
Now, if you haven't gotten your real ID just yet, there's no need to panic, despite what you may be seeing at revenue offices across the country. This was the scene in a Chicago office yesterday, well, outside the office. As you can see, hundreds of people waiting hours to get the enhanced ID so they can quickly make it through the airport security. Well, here in Arkansas, the lines were there, but weren't nearly as long at local revenue offices. Scott Harden with the State Revenue Department says not having a Social Security card is the #1 reason why people are being turned away. The other, last names not matching a birth certificate.
If your birth certificate is Smith, but your married name is Jones, you have to bring the marriage certificate justifying the name change. Same thing with the divorce name change, bring the divorce decree.
Well, you can find a list of the needed documents right now on our website. That's thv11.com. Homeland Security say about 81% of travelers already have compliant identification. And remember, passports and tribal IDs will also be accepted at security checkpoints. Well, the case against triple murder suspect Stacey Lee Drake is moving forward after an Oklahoma judge ruled he must stand trial. Drake was arrested in Morrilton, Arkansas last June after a days-long manhunt that started in Oklahoma. Prosecutors spent the last 2 days calling on dozens of witnesses to establish evidence supporting a trial for Drake. He's accused of killing 3 people, including Tara Underwood. Tara's sister says she's relieved to see the case move forward.
There are 6 kids now without their parents, Taylor and Tara, and we deserve that justice. I feel like we are getting somewhere, and the witnesses have identified him as the suspect in the courtroom with us. So I feel like that's a small win for what we're going through right now.
Drake's next court appearance is set for July 7th. In other news, a former Arkansas police officer is facing dozens of charges this week, including rape and grooming a child. 28-year-old Brian Cooper of Benton was a Haskell police officer before being decertified in 2022. Police first started looking into him last December when they got a cyber tip. Multiple agencies raided both his home and the fire department last week. He remains behind bars on a $300,000 bond. A Little Rock man is accused of scamming thousands of dollars from an elderly woman in Ohio. Investigators say 68-year-old David Nelson convinced a 76-year-old woman she had won $3 million in a sweepstakes, but needed to pay taxes up front to claim it. She sent multiple checks to an address here in Arkansas before realizing it was a scam and calling police. Authorities in Ohio worked with Little Rock police to track down Nelson, and detectives say he could be part of a larger scheme.
There's probably more victims out there in other states besides Ohio, and we're working with other law enforcement agencies to try to figure out how many people this happened to.
Nelson is charged with felony theft and will likely be extradited to Ohio either this week or next. Well, there's a growing sense of urgency amongst Arkansas advocates working to end sexual violence and human trafficking as possible federal funding cuts threaten programs thousands depend on. Groups like the Arkansas Coalition Against Sexual Assault are now ringing the alarm. They were joined by other organizations and law enforcement agencies to talk about the impact the cuts could have on the state. Executive Director Monty Ballard says in 2024, $684 million was awarded through 880 grants by the Office on Violence Against Women. But on February 6, every open funding opportunity was withdrawn and nothing's returned since.
That includes the closure of domestic violence shelters, rape crisis centers, child advocacy centers, and the loss of many other services throughout the victim justice field.
There's a lot of people that don't know how to get out. And if they do get out and that funding isn't there and the facilities are gone, where do they go?
The Department of Justice told the groups the pause is part of a review of diversity, equity, and inclusion efforts and to align with new administration priorities. But for survivors like Christian Hudson and Jennifer Frazier, this wait is more than unsettling.
Sexual assault will not go away overnight. So let me ask you this, why should the funding? And if there's no safe place for us to go, then what do we do?
ECASA and other advocates.
Where will victims get to be victims?
ECASA and other advocates say they've contacted the DOJ urging immediate reconsideration before the impacts hit as soon as October 1st. Well, nationally, the Trump administration says it's preparing to begin trade talks with China for the first time since both countries implemented high reciprocal tariffs. President Donald Trump says China wants to make a deal, quote, very badly. China's foreign ministry says the U.S. is the one that requested the meeting. The president's Treasury Secretary hasn't acknowledged the sky-high tariffs are not sustainable. Experts also worry about supply chain disruptions, with businesses typically placing orders now for back-to-school and holiday sales. Now, meanwhile, American businesses, both large and small, continue adjusting to the trade war with China. Mattel, the maker of Barbie, says it will raise prices where necessary and shift supply chains out of China. And as Tom Hansen found out, one major manufacturer is halting shipments altogether.
Oh, this is a dream come true.
This family has been in the bicycle business for 4 generations.
When I joined the company in 1972, we had 6 employees, including both my parents and myself. As of a few months ago, we had over 200 employees.
Arnold Kamler took over Kent International from his father. Now his son Scott is CEO. They sell about 2 million bikes a year, and they're one of the biggest suppliers for Walmart. But President Trump's plan for tariffs is throwing a wrench into their American dream.
How much more expensive would something like this become?
Well, for one wheel like this, our cost would be about $10 to $12. What's here, with a tariff, that would go to $30.
$30?
Yeah.
Wow, more than double.
More than double.
How does that make you feel?
Really bad. It's the, and angry.
90% of Kent bikes are imported from China. The rest are assembled in the U.S. with parts from Asia. He's been paying 25% tariffs since the first Trump administration. In just 1 month on tariffs totaling 45%, Kent paid over $3 million.
China is not paying these tariffs. We have an account with U.S. Customs where they automatically deduct once a month the import duty from our account. And so it's not only import duty, but these tariffs are deducted.
China, first row. Even if tariffs against China are reduced, there are dozens of other countries facing new tariffs. So trying to find other vendors seems futile.
We had already shifted some of our business, almost half our business, to several of the countries on that list, and we're getting out of China, and now we're still getting slammed. It's just completely unfair.
Hypothetically, if you were to manufacture every single part of a bike and then assemble it all here in the United States, can you walk me through the impacts when it comes to cost, when it comes to labor?
I'll just tell you one quick story. There was a company that came to us a couple years ago. They wanted to make handlebars for us, and the price came back at $12. I said, $12? It's about 80 cents a steel. How could you be? I mean, a $100 bicycle here would be $1,000 if all the parts were made here right now.
The company canceled its imports from China for April, and they don't have any plans to place new orders in May. Tom Hansen, CBS News, New York.